Okay, hello everyone. I think we'll start now. Thank you for coming. As I was introduced, my name is Maciej Połczyński. I work as a type designer, let's say. And the talk is called Dinosaurs and Type. I will explain this in a minute. It's a bit more like a nice name for the talk than anything else, so sorry if you'll be disappointed. And I believe this is a very iconic frame, of course, and it shows everything the talk will be about. But let me break it up for you. So there is a little bit of type here, and a little bit of type here. And in case you didn't notice, there is also a little bit of dinosaur here. Yeah. So, but just to make it more serious, I think the talk should have a different proportions. So the real ones will be more like this. So there's more type than the dinosaur. And I'll be talking about 3 projects that I did last 2 or 3 years now. And they are still in process, let's say. So I will just share a couple of thoughts about this. And just before I go on, I will tell you the story of the dinosaurs, maybe. So at the second year of my bachelor course, we had classes with Klaudiusz Lusarczyk, who's here. And he forced us sort of to read the essays of Michael Bierut. If you don't know the guy, that's his face. You should probably know him. And if it still doesn't ring a bell, then maybe you have the aha moment when you see this, that he is the co-founder of the Pentagram Studio. Anyway, so we had to choose the essay and then go on with it and get the idea of the essence inside the essay and make a presentation out of it. So I choose an essay which is called I Hate ITC Garamond, which is pretty much a hate speech on a typeface, let's say, maybe not so much. But he goes on and explains why he doesn't really like the typeface, which makes a lot of sense if you read it. But my approach was a bit different because he also mentioned something called type revival, which I will explain in a second, which is a process usually type designers take to make new typefaces out of old typefaces. So, so my idea 5 years ago, and it was exactly 5 years ago in November, was that you take an existing material like this, or like this, which is a specimen of Garamond from the 16th century, and you try to come up with the interpretation how it should look like. And this was also in the case of the Garamond designed by Tony Stan in 1975 for the International Typeface Corporation, and as well a lot of different Garamonds that are available on the market. And they of course, is it possible I speak like this? No. Please, I will shout. Okay. This is just very weird when you can hear yourself like, you know, like a god sort of brain in your brain, I don't know, very weird. So anyway, they vary a lot in proportions and details, also because of the different inspiration they were taken from or different references point. The most, let's say, nice one is when you have the metal type and you can start by printing or taking a very detailed picture of the metal type and then going into digital mode. So this would be a bit like going from this to this. So you simply apply new flesh on the old body. There is a lot of like small technical aspects you have to consider, which are, for example, the quality of the existing material, which is the quality of the paper, the quality of the ink, of the print itself. Also, sometimes they would include something, or designers include something called ink traps, which make the spilled ink look the way you want actually, and not the way it would be clumsy and so on after it spills. Also, you have to take into consideration, maybe not so anymore with Retina screen, but how the font is rendered on the screen, how the pixels align. And I think this is a very important part. So how you interpret the old materials and also how the screen interprets it. Because, for example, using again the dinosaur mode, you can know this fella from the movie. And now I think that the scientists agreed that it looked a bit more like this, which when you compare them, well, you can judge. So what is important when you consider revival? You have to, of course, be able to define when the typeface was created, or where the dinosaur was born, or which part of the evolution it is from, let's say. So it's the same with typefaces as well. They also have the certain steps. This is more about the writing itself. This is more about the styles and different proportions they have, different tools that were used to create them. Of course, related to art and architecture and many other visual aspects of our society, let's say. And then, so you also have to know a bit of anatomy as well, I think. So to be able to reconstruct the dinosaur or the typeface, you need to know certain elements to be able to invent them, let's say. So this was my idea 5 years ago, that you take the pre-existing fossil and you create a new flesh. But actually, the projects I will show you on the airport, when I was coming here yesterday, I thought maybe this will be a better example to show this. Can you see this? So it's not a cave drawing, it's a paper drawing of a child, of his favorite, I don't know, or imaginative dog. And it never existed as a toy, yet it was created as a toy, of course, later on, yeah? Or this crazy cat. Yeah. So they never existed as a toys, or they were never intended as toys, but they were created for a value for a child or maybe adult. Okay, so keep that picture in mind. So finally, going to the projects I did. First of them is the rigor typeface, and to explain this, I have to tell you about the Polona, which is a huge repository. It's called Polona, and it's a huge repository for various printed materials from different years, and you can just go through it, and you can use the images, or you can use the drawings they have for pictures, covers. It's a lot of different materials. Also, you have some trippy illustrations for what to put on kite when you go playing with your child. And I also came to find this one, which was a huge surprise for me, on how the typeface is created here, how the headline is created for the book. And I decided to go on with this project. And to go, I had to ease my mind a bit and find something about the creator. And of course, they would never sign the illustration back then, so they had only like the small logotype. And long story short, I went through hundreds of pages to find as many examples as I could of this guy, let's say. And then I came to find only 4 examples of his work, and I found his name. I found some details about him. Here you can see how the other examples look like. So everywhere we can see his logotype. And then I found out that he died just 1 year after he designed this. And well, not the fact that he died, but I was satisfied with the information I gathered about him to go on and design the typeface. And just to show you the very quick process of going from print or from scan to a typeface, I would increase contrast, get rid of everything I don't need, then try to reinvent what was missing. So I split the letters into separate elements. And then going very rough, I duplicate the letters I have or the shapes I had, try to overlap, try to think which proportions or which shapes work for a different letter that I don't need. So this is very sketchy and very rough. And then going even further, I make a very quick sketch with touchpad on my laptop to see if this will work or no. So this would be like the final step before going into vector drawings. And I can see now the next slide has no typeface, so this will be probably some Arial or something, so don't bother. Yeah. So anyway, if you go to type design software, you can work with modules. So the gray elements you can see on the bottom is modules. Of course, you want to reuse the same shapes at some points. And then this is the set I end up with only uppercase letters and some diacritical marks. And because it's only uppercase, I also went with Cyrillic and finally with Greek. So if you want to try out, let me know. So just going from this, I created the bigger shape, let's say. So this would be the transition between the dinosaur or the toy into the fleshy T-Rex from Jurassic Park. In my brain, at least, you don't have to agree on this. So in order to go on, you have to understand the date, the origin, the style, the DNA of the letters. So this would be this chart. You have to, in a way, place your typeface onto a timeline and make sure that you know where is it from, maybe. So in this case, this is a very characteristic style where the proportions are a bit off, let's say. The 20th century Art Nouveau style, you probably all know. So also there, the DNA gives you some examples of on how to maybe design the shapes that were not used or were not there in the typeface or at that time. So this is the @ sign. And then preparing for the lecture, I actually found out that the sign was there since the end of the 19th century on the keyboard of the typewriter. So it was existing already, so I was a bit wrong. Anyway, so there is also a lot more different shapes that you have to design that sometimes maybe you go too modular, maybe it's too much copying the shapes instead of reinventing new ones, because of course the aspect of the tool which it was created at the first place is missing now. Anyway, so I also tried to design some examples of presentations for the typefaces. I tried to also use materials from the same time, let's say. So this is also police force from Poland from the beginning of the 20th century. Here you can see this, the basic set. And for this project, I also went for a bold version, but you can see some elements are not really fitting the project. And yesterday on the couch at the hotel, I found a really nice example of this. So you try to, this is from 1916, so the beginning of the 20th century again, when they try to reinterpret the bones of the dinosaur and they don't know yet how it works, so they drew something like this, which is of course something wrong here. And the title on the image said, "When Dinosaurs Went Bad," so it explains a lot, I think, because of course this is how it should probably look like. I'm not a big fan of dinosaurs, just in case you will maybe ask. This just fits the idea, I think. So if you compare the fin and the bolt, you can see that the middle part, of course, it's very sharp and it's not fitting. So this year I decided to take some more time and redesign the bold version, and it's going slowly, so maybe in the future it will be finished at some point. Anyway, I'll just also show you that this is a use of the typeface from Poland, very nice exhibition about abstract art, so it's 15% of abstraction for painting of artists from Wrocław. Also, the typeface, I had the biggest letter in the whole catalog, which is, I don't know, maybe nice or no, depends. Anyway, this was featured also in the New Aesthetic book. I don't remember, the guy is called Leonard, who designed it. It's a very nice project, collecting around 600 or 300 typefaces, recent typefaces, let's say. Okay. Are you still on, or I bored you to death? Okay, because there's some more. Sorry. So anyway, the next, the next typeface. Thank you. I guess this is for the dinosaurs, but I'm not sure yet. So the next typeface is committed. And I came across this poster. We have, of course, a very famous Polish poster school, which maybe you heard of. This is a bit later on. It's by Henryk Feilhauer, and I totally fell in love with this poster because I think it's very rare that the image and the letters, they speak the same language. And here you can see, I think it's super well balanced. So I acquired the poster, and then I was investigating the typeface, not enough, as you will see in a second. And it seemed like it's done by hand to fit the image on the poster. So I decided, okay, if this is done by hand, it's probably designed for the poster itself. So I will go on and make this typeface because I really love the shapes. And the process was the same. So if you have any printed material, I recommend, and you want to go on and design a typeface, I recommend to use Photoshop or whatever image editor, so you can very quickly cut out the shapes, rotate, flip, duplicate, you can use certain elements. It's very quick to work with. I went on to design more weights for it, also lowercase, which was not on the poster. Here you can see the whole set on the left side and some examples on the right side. Some glyphs are missing. Anyway, again, materials to present. This is on a picture you cannot really see from a committee meeting. The committed means committee. So you can imagine the typeface is shouting from the stage as I am here now. And I was super happy, and I also published some of the examples of the process. And then after some time, I went through different typefaces that are existing already, and it came out that the typeface exists. So this sucks. And anyway, so this is, I think, very personal thing, if I want to go on and publish or no, because some people claim that if you start from a point of like image on the poster, and then you redesign, reapply certain elements that are not in the typeface, or you make it completely different, then it's okay. Some people say no. So it's of course a case of law, which I don't want to really be part of. So this is the Neil Bold typeface. You can even see in the question mark that it's quite a different typeface. Anyway, it's not published and probably won't be. So this was the second example. So it's a couple of months of work, well, thrown away, let's say. There's no dinosaur here, so there's no like joke at the end. It's just really sad. Anyway, and the last example I want to show you is the Krajewski typeface. And Andrzej Krajewski is Polish poster designer, and he was gone from Poland for a long time because he moved to US in the 80s. So he was kind of rejected from Poland, from the, let's say, art history or poster design history. At least I think so. And he created really beautiful works, and also he had this really strong sense of combining the image and the letters again. The King of Gypsies. He worked a lot with movie posters. Very known, Blues Brothers. I think it's very beautiful. So I had this crazy idea because the Wikipedia page claimed that he's still alive. So I decided to write an email to him asking if it would be fine if I try to digitalize some of his letters. And after a month, he came back to me and he said, "Okay, sure, call me back," which was amazing because I was, like super stressed out about this, and I had some couple of conversations with him through the telephone when we never talked about letters. He only told me about his life and his experience with living in US and so on. So we never talked about type really. Anyway, so when he was rediscovered in Poland, he published this book of his posters and his covers, and I felt this is really amazing and I really want to go on with this. So after I got his agreement, I went on, and the process was still the same as I showed you before. So I tried to imagine how the shapes could look, what can I reuse, what I can duplicate, transform, and so on from the existing one, and then how I design certain elements that will not fit the obvious flip and turn and rotate pattern. So here you can see the set. And from what I talked with Andrzej Krajewski, he said that he really loves US and living in US because the most important reason for him was that there is always a jazz radio going on, so you can always listen to jazz live, which I think tells a lot about him. So I went on, and when I was designing a couple of materials for the typeface, let's say we co-designed. Maybe this is a bit too much to say, but anyway. So I really played a lot with maybe not a lot, but the jazz thing was very important. You can also see in a second, I think. So this is Cyrillic as well, and this is Greek. I don't remember what it says. Really? Makes sense? Okay. 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 So yeah. Well, and you can see here a couple of alternative characters, of course, because you can quickly design the letters, the additional letters, let's say, and include them inside the typeface. Unfortunately, last year, Andrzej Krajewski passed away, so yeah. I think you should totally check out his work because it's really strong visuals and beautiful letters. And also I will show you a couple of examples of how the typeface was used. This is from Ground Graphics, a identity system for Tartan Media agency. Also recently it was used for an invitation to very, I think, posh fashion designers. I'm not sure if this is it, but they did a nice print with the holographic foil. So okay. Also on the cover of the book for Polish director of movies. Okay, and this is the last thing I want to share. And there's no more. Oh no, there's one more dinosaur at the end. So stay focused. So just recently, I went with Ewa Satalecka to Katowice where we were able to talk with the wife of Henryk Sakwerda, who is Polish type designer, calligrapher, educator, who was actually, because he also unfortunately passed away 3 years ago. But he always remained sort of unknown. He received some awards for his typefaces. Also, so this is the first one he designed. He received the third prize. He also received a lot of awards on calligraphy and teaching. Here you can see the design from '71. And we managed to get the archive of his work, which nobody cared about in Poland, which is, I think, very sad, because we don't have a lot of people designing typefaces or dealing with letters. So any occasion like this is like gold or maybe petrol to be more expensive. So you can see there is a lot of his personal notes, sketches of the work, as well as stuff that probably not many designers do anymore, so that they try to analyze what was done in the past and how the details were created in the previous typefaces. There is also a very interesting document that he actually claims the originality of his design, which is, I think, also some kind of trouble recently, so that there's no one to judge, let's say, what's new or not. Also, this idea of type revival is very tricky, because is it a new typeface or is it an old typeface, and who's the author of it or designer? So this seems like the next year will be devoted to this archive of Henryk Sakwerda. If you will follow the Future Text website, I hope that soon there will be some information about the website for this project, so you can follow if you're interested. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Thank you. Oh no, sorry, no. Yeah.